There are a number of reasons to decant a bottle of wine. The first and foremost being sediment. If you have an old bottle that's been lying on its side in the cellar, you know it's going to have a lot of sediment. You don't want that to go into somebody's glass of wine. Beyond sediment, there are a few other reasons to decant a bottle. If something's too young, you want to get a little oxygen, if the temperature is too cold, or if you think that the guest is going to feel extra special by getting that attention. After the guest has ordered the bottle and you've repeated the order back to the guest, first you have to retrieve the bottle. You go into the cellar, you make sure the bottle is there, you put it into a cradle in the same exact position that it was. After that, I get that set up on my Gueridon, and then I start to mark the table with glassware. I will mark glasses for everybody and 3 coasters, one for the decanter, one for the bottle, and one for the cork. When you start to mark glasses before you've presented a bottle, it builds suspense. It also lets the guests know that you haven't forgotten about them. Then I will set up my side station, my Gueridon. I have my tools for wine service and also a wine key, a candle, a lighter, and some serviettes, along with my cradle with the wine in it and a decanter. I will light the candle and then roll the Gueridon over to the table. And then the steps of service next are very similar to regular wine service. Your end goal is to get wine into a glass. You present the bottle in the cradle to the guest. They approve of the bottle, you go back to your Gueridon, you very carefully remove the foil from the bottle, you wipe between the cork and the foil in case there's any sort of mold or grime, and then you insert your wine key, be it an Osso or a regular waiter's pull tab, whatever you're using, your code 38, and extract the cork. You very carefully extract the cork. You make sure to wipe the top of the bottle again in case there's any sort of sediment. I typically position everything to my liking. I have my decanter here, and I turn the cradle with the bottle in it on the other side because I'm going to hold the decanter in my left hand and the bottle in my right. I lift the cradle, I hold the bottle, and I remove the cradle from the bottle. Then I switch hands, I grab my decanter, and I start to very carefully and slowly pour the wine into the decanter. At this point, I have my candle set up. It's illuminating the bottle, and I can see exactly what's happening. If you don't have a candle, there are other sources of light that you could use, like a flashlight. Everything else is black. I'm not paying attention to the busboy who just dropped a fork. I'm not paying attention to my favorite guest that just entered the restaurant. I'm only looking at this wine coming out of the bottle, going into the decanter. And what I'm looking for is that murkiness that happens when the sediment starts to emerge from the bottle. It becomes a little cloudier, darker. If you're decanting a younger bottle of wine and you're not concerned about sediment, you don't have to pour as carefully and you don't necessarily need a candle. At this point, it's in the decanter. I wipe the bottle just in case there's any drips. I don't want it to go onto the label. I then present the cork to the guest along with the bottle of wine, and I bring the decanter over. And then I pour a taste of wine from the decanter for the guest. I wipe after pouring with my serviettes to make sure that there are no drips on the table. After the host approves of the bottle, then I start to pour for the guests. I pour for the special occasion first, then I pour for all the ladies, and then I pour for the rest of the gentlemen at the table, ending with the host. I put the decanter on the coaster on the table, and I ask the host if he would like the bottle and the cork on the table. The biggest mistake that people make with decanting service is when they go to grab the bottle from the cellar. They will oftentimes pull the bottle out, stand it up to make sure it's the correct bottle, and then put it into a cradle. In a more casual environment, you probably do not have a Gueridon. That's going to be a huge diversion from what you would do with formal wine service. You also probably don't have white tablecloths. Maybe you don't even have wine coasters. In our restaurant, it's more casual. We have coasters. We do not have white tablecloths. We do not have a Gueridon. We present the bottle, we mark the tables correctly, and then we open the wine in a service station before we return with the decanter and the bottle for the guests. There are wines that I almost always decant. If I have a Bordeaux from the 1980s, I know there's going to be sediment. I know it's not going to hurt the wine to be decanted. If there's a young Barolo, a wine that notoriously needs at least a decade to be drinkable, I will almost always automatically decant that wine. And then there are the wines that it doesn't hurt. Rioja from the early 2000s doesn't necessarily get better in a decanter, but it's not going to hurt the wine. Pinot Noir is the one that I tend to almost never decant. Chateauneuf de Pape, I also have a lot of issues with it. Thinner skin grapes that can oxidize easily, especially those with a little bit of age. Even if there's sediment in the bottle, I'm always wary about decanting those. If somebody requests a wine to be decanted, and I really believe that it should not be decanted, I might say something along the lines of, this wine is very open right now, it's drinking great, I had it recently, I don't know if it will benefit from being decanted. If they still insist on it, I will always do what the guest is asking for. I would sometimes decant a white wine. If it's a Grand Cru Burgundy, Meursault, Premier Cru that has a lot of oak on it, I might decant it just to warm it up a little bit, help it develop more quickly. One of the most important things with all wine service is that you can approach the table confidently and with authority. You have to do things with finesse. If you're really caught up in all the details, you're going to look nervous. That's not a confident sommelier. The guest doesn't feel safe that you're there. And that's really what you want to show them, that they're in good hands, that they've come to you and you've got this covered.
Guildsom is a nonprofit membership organization for wine professionals. Visit guildsom.com to become a member and gain access to all of our educational content, in-person classes, and a global network.